Morning, everyone. Excuse me. It's Saturday, so we can slow down a bit because I'm going to tell you some amazing news in a minute. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here in the Sable alone. It's overcast and drizzle rain, which is going to go on for a while. They've got the Solo Metrocock happening here with all the Figaro boats, but the weather's a bit average. And it's the 11th of March, and we've got all of the entrants on the one screen of the tracker now, which you're looking at. But I'm about to turn upside down everything I've been saying about Kirsten in this session. You'll be really surprised against Abhilash. It's all about to change dramatically. And Simon's closing in on Abhilash, which is kind of cool. Goog's doing really well, hanging in, only about 1,200 miles or something behind Kirsten. And Jeremy, he's 50 knots and been under bare poles and all the rest of it, but still making pretty good progress to Cape Horn and still got some heavy weather. And Ian's there as well. The positions just dropped over. But anyway, before I get into that, some sort of gossip and just general hoo-ha, I got a copy of, Jessica sent me a copy of her book, which I've got another copy, but this one's the Netflix version, got the actor rather than Jess on the cover. And it's pretty cool if you get the chance to read it. It's good fun, called True Spirit, same as the Netflix movie. It's the same book in there. But it's funny, the power of books. It's the weekend, so I'm going to go on a bit. This is Jesse Martin's book. Now, a lot of you may know Jesse, from 2018. He helped us film do all the filming for the documentary, and then he actually, put the doco together, which is called A Voyage of Madmen, which is going to actually be available in about 8, 9, 10 weeks. It's going to be available online, so you'll be able to subscribe to it off the GGR website at the beginning of June. So watch out for that. But this is the book that inspired Jessica to do her voyage. Jesse did it. He was 18 when he finished, and he was the youngest at the time. And that was the book that Jessica's mum read and made Jessica decide to do that. Interestingly, Jesse had the idea to do all this through another Australian guy called David Dix, who sailed solo around the world in an SS-34. And Jesse used an SNS-34 as well. And I got Jessica an SNS-34 because they're good boats. Anyway, so David went around, but unfortunately he didn't get the unsupported record because a bolt broke on his mast, and he ended up getting a British Navy helicopter came out from the Falklands and lowered a bolt to him. So it wasn't unsupported. Anyway, and David Dix was inspired through his association with a guy, a very famous solo sailor in Australia called John Sanders, who did a few solo circumnavigations in SNS-34s. So that all happened, and there were a whole lot of all these people are sort of people I know really well. But it's the amazing part is the power of books and inspiration. So quite fun. But if you get a chance to get hold of Jesse's book, it's just simply called Lionheart. It's a great read. And when you're reading that, you can see why it inspired Jessica to do that. And that was a bit of a distraction there. But anyway, so, but it's the weekend, and I just got the copy of Jessica's book, so a new version. Anyway, back to the tracker, and I'll tell you what's going on, because there's quite a bit going on. And don't leave early, because I'm about to tell you some amazing stuff about Kirsten and Abhilash. So anyway, now I've got my tracker up here. We'll go straight to the leaderboard first, just to show that everything is working as projected. Kirsten's now distance to the finish, 4,290 nautical miles, so near enough to 4,300. And Abhilash is 4,795 nautical miles, so near enough to 4,800, so about 500 miles in front. That's where Kirsten's sitting now. And remember, I said that she could end up 800 miles by the time to get Recife. Well, that might all change in a minute when I explain what's going on. Goog's hanging in there as well, actually, doing really well. 5,650 nautical miles, certainly in touch with the leaders. So that's good. And Simon, of course, blasting away. He's getting very close to Abhilash. And then Jeremy. So we'll just leave that there. I'll get this away, and we'll build it up and look at what's happening with Ian. So Ian and Jeremy together. Ian right now, he's got a bit of breeze. I checked it out this morning on windy, and he's got 30 knot forecast, and it's gusting up to about 40. So he's doing 4.4 knots, still holding the rum line. He's in a bit of a hurry because between now and Cape Horn, after this sort of wind goes through, it appears that there will be no big storms for about the next 8 or 9 days, and that might be enough for him to get around. So he needs to keep focusing on boat speed, stick to the run line, and keep going. So, and at the moment, that's working well for him. He's got the wind coming from the right direction. So he had the forecast coming with the bigger winds tonight, or last night rather. So he decided to take his mainsail off, and hopefully he's been stitching that during the night. He's got a 30-centimetre rip. It must be in strategically demanding position because he seems a bit worried about it, about getting the job done and so on. It's right on the leach, so he must be worried about it extending further forward. So we'll wait for the latest tweets. Jane's going to put them up this morning. They might already even be up there, and see what he's saying about his mainsail. But anyway, should be happy to be in this breeze, just going on along under headsail, and it's very soon about to switch to the southwest, which is still very favourable. Jeremy, on the other hand, you can see here he's had a bit of a puff late last night. This was a bit of a puff, and he reported that he was under bare poles in 50 knots, gusting 50 knots and so on, still making good speed. He's in a hurry to get around as well because there was another blow coming, which I'll explain shortly. It's actually due in at about the 14:15, but it's cutting across the actual mainland here. But then it'll interact with him. It'll hit him when he's on the other side probably. So he's sort of going for it as best he can now to get towards Cape Horn as quick as he can. So I'm going to leave this on a big scale now while we punch it through, because you can all see generally what's going on. So getting a little bit better for Jeremy, but then another lot comes through. That's another 30, gusting 40, maybe a little bit higher, but it's no blue in there. So it's just the blue's forming underneath him down around here. So it's going to give him a punch, but he should well be able to handle that. And you can see Ian is then into a moderate southwesterly. That'll be 25, 28 knots, gusting 30, 35, maybe a little bit higher, but that's typical for down there, not a big storm. So Jeremy still got big winds going through to midnight tonight, and then finally, at last, it'll start to settle down a bit. Coming in goes from the northwest around to the west. That'll suit him for altering course again. He'll follow that through. So he's being kept off a lee shore at the moment. That's helped him to go south a bit. So he's got plenty of clearance from the mainland. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to scroll it through for a few days, because you can see once I've done that, I've got to hit this. You can see then there's not a lot of big things happening. There goes the 12th. Here we go into the 13th. So that's the next day. That's 2 days ahead. All pretty benign weather. The 14th, coming into the 14th again. No big storms yet. We've got this system coming up from the north, heading down. So we're in the 14. And distances, so let's just check the distance of when Jeremy is likely to be around the corner. He's only 430 miles away, so that's near enough to 3 good days. So it's the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and this is late on the 14th. So at this stage, even though it's light, Jeremy should be down around very close to rounding by then. Okay, so keep rolling this through. This is the 14th, end of the 14th, and he's still got the chance, although here you can see it's coming in then from the northeast. Not good if you want to go that way. So he really needs to get around as quick as he can. He knows that. He's got the forecast coming through, and then that's not going to hold for very long, but he certainly doesn't want a northeasterly go around. And then all of a sudden it's going around to the northeast. Goes underneath him, northerly. He could make progress on that, but this is where it gets tricky. This is going to certainly interact with him, but not as bad as I showed you the other day. This system was supposed to remain this side of Chile, and it was going to be gusting up over 80 knots in here with big winds, big sea, which would have been quite treacherous. So let's just see how it plays out. But he's going to have some challenging weather when he's down there for sure, because you can see that's about where he's likely to be. Even if he's here, it's going to be a big kick from behind, but we'll see how it goes. It's still 4 days away. Anything can happen in those 4 days. It could get worse, it could get better, but that's Jeremy's challenges. For Ian, there's still nothing happening out here. So this is right through to the 15th. So I'm going to keep pushing it through, and you'll see that right through 15, There's nothing happening, but there's a good sailing breeze. This is all westerlies and southwesterlies, so he should make good time. The 17th, it's just moderate weather, still nothing. Right through the 18th, still nothing. And then we get through to nearly to the 20th, and it's still nothing really, because that's not a big storm. So really, Ian's got 9 days to get around. Now, it'll be phenomenal if he can get the whole thing happening with no storms, but it's looking pretty reasonable. I mean, you get a whole new forecast in 10 days, of course, but not too bad. So Jeremy's doing it hard. He's not doing it tough. He's doing it hard. He's got his work cut out for him. It's not easy sailing, but it's manageable, and we're all our thoughts with him. So let's see how he goes when he gets around. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, so now down here to all these guys and girls. So we'll just look at Goog now. This may not seem very significant, but I can assure you it's a game changer. This is going to become the new South Atlantic high, right? And it's really going to have some very interesting interplay with Kirsten and Abhilash and Simon. So at the moment, Goog's doing 4.1 knots, 72 nautical miles in the last 24 hours. That's a little bit small, eh? And Simon's got a big kick from behind. Goog's having some frustrations here. That's why he's only doing 4 knots. Simon's doing 4.5, but he's, favourable wind right from behind him would be spinnaker material. And Abhilash has come across on port tack, because there's a little bit more of an northerly slant. So it's just a better one for him if he can make northeast. But he's going quite slow. He's been doing less than 4, now doing 4.5 knots. Hard on the wind, keep going. Kirsten right now looking good. This is exactly what we've been saying. There's the southeast trades. How good is that? She's still got it on the beam, and she's doing 6.3 knots, rocketing north. That's why she's 500 miles in front of Abhilash right now. And all is good, exactly the way we projected in the last few days. But forget that. It's all changing. And I'll show you why in a minute. In fact, I'll try and show you right now, because you can see the whole thing here. So you can see Goog there, you can see Simon, you can see everything that's happening. Now watch that high pressure system, the center core, right by Goog. Okay, you can see Goog's have light winds. Look at Simon. Simon's now got a good solid southerly breeze. All right, and then look at Kirsten. Kirsten's now falling into a hole. Right, it's going really quiet, so she's going to slow down. Abhilash is already basically getting towards this hole. All right. And then see how this whole system here is strengthening up. This is the birth of the new South Atlantic high, and it's going to do some horrible things to this one up here. It's going to squash it up. So I'm going to go back now a bit smaller, just so you can get an I don't know whether this will work or not, but I think you can all see what's going on here. You've got this high pressure here. You've got Cape Town here. The South Atlantic high usually sits here, right? But there's nothing there at the moment. But this is predominant. And I'll just click it through. And what's about to happen is pretty horrific for Kirsten, because this high next to Goog is strengthening. See what's happened to the trade winds? The trade winds are now getting light because the strength of this is gone. Remember, the trade winds are driven by the South Atlantic high, and this has now stopped being a high, and it's getting all squashed up and messy. So therefore, the trade winds die out, right? And Kirsten's now sitting in a hole, right? And so's Abhilash. So it's not so bad, because they're both copping it. And now, as we keep going, I'll review this again in a closer detail in a minute. You can see what we've got here now. In fact, I need to come up so you can see this. You've got these really strong southeasterly winds coming up, and Simon's riding these. He's rocketing up. Hasn't quite reached Abhilash yet. And this is now on the 12th afternoon. So for the next 36 hours, Simon's going to be flying up here, catching up to Abhilash, because Abhilash is going to be hardly moving because he's in that area of no wind. Kirsten's still sitting there with no wind. So he's riding it up, but it's now just reached Abhilash. This southeasterly wind has just reached him. And then as it goes, cheapest Chinese stuff. As it goes further up, you can see now Abhilash has got it. Right, so he's got it. He's got a solid southeaster, no more headwinds. So he's turning around, and he'll now probably go out to an east-northeasterly direction. He doesn't have to go out to the east. he doesn't want to go north because then he's closing the coast again. He'll probably have a bit of easting, and he's heading straight up towards Kirsten, who's sitting there going nowhere. Right. So this is now going on. Abhilash is flying. Simon's flying straight up here. And this is now the 13th, which is a good 2 days away, 2.5 days. It's still going. So Abhilash is still sailing. It hasn't reached Kirsten yet. She's still sitting there, right? And time is ticking. And then now what's happening is Abhilash is still going up here. He's now got the trades, because if I scale this back, shock horror, this is the start of the new southeasterly trades. See this? Kirsten's trapped. She can't get across to the other side. There's no trades up there anyway. This is going to keep heading north and become the new trades, but Abhilash is already in it. Simon's in it as well, and Kirsten's still waiting. So she's losing out a couple of days here. So if I go up here, and you'll be horrified at what's going to happen now, because it's great for Abhilash. Abhilash is now flying, and he's been doing it for a couple of days. Kirsten's still sitting there. And remembering, she had a little bit of breeze, so she won't be there. She'll be about here, right in the middle of nowhere. And if you look at that, there's light headwinds, so that's even worse. So she's going to be sitting about where the cursor is now, because she had a little bit of breeze at the beginning. And here comes this South Atlantic high that I've been talking about. Abhilash is on the top of it, so he's got favourable winds still. He'll be up here now. He's going to gain, I reckon he'll probably get 150 to 200 miles out of this, closer towards Kirsten. And Simon's going to be riding it as well. So Simon caught up a little bit. He'll be beside, he'll take out another 100 and something miles towards Abhilash. And then they keep going. And now we're on the 14th. So this is 3 days ahead. And it's still holding, and Kirsten's still trapped in that trough. Right? She can't go anywhere. She'll be sitting about there somewhere, while everyone behind is closing in on her. And she's still sitting there, basically. That trough, if you watch this line of latitude here, it's 20 degrees south. Kirsten's still sitting there, and Abhilash is sailing in a beautiful breeze, rocketing up here. And that 500-mile lead is probably going to go back to 300 miles, or possibly even less, because that's 4 days ahead. Abhilash could end up right beside her, because even still, we're now going into the 15th. We're heading into the 16th, and where's Kirsten? Kirsten's going to be sitting right here, because I reckon she'll be sitting about there, and Abhilash will be coming up here. So it's getting a bit far out to project it anymore, but you can see everything's gone completely upside down. Abhilash is going to be on a roll. Kirsten's going to become supremely frustrated. Simon's going to close in on Abhilash. Goog's going to be fluffing around at the back here, but he'll be doing okay. You just got to ride the weather. And this has turned everything upside down. So have a good weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. And I think I'll be talking the same thing, and we'll all be watching it actually unfold. GGR, boy, what a race. Now I've got to get back to it and turn the right thing off, and we'll see you tomorrow. Fun and games.